All right, moving forward with our selector, we consider the child selector now. The child selector is almost the same with the descendant selector, just that the syntax too might be different, but the same way you are selecting a child with the descendant selector, then you're also selecting the child element with descendant select. So just like, let me just use this example. So the same way you put space, you can just put this greater than sign to select the child of the div. So but in this case, I will just create a div, another div now. Instead of me to even instead of the div to have a child of paragraph, they are going to have a child of span, and I'm going to have a lorem 10, and I just duplicate this. Now if I save, by save, so now I'm going to be selecting the child of that div, and that is going to be the span. And let's say I want to give it a background color. Let me just give it a color of red. if i save if I save now, oh, why now? Yeah, so let me refresh so that I see my changes. You can see now that all the child of that div that are span, don't, you can see that it's not separating because span is an inline element, so everything is going to be on the same line. So that is selecting all the child of a particular parent. So you use this greater than sign, or you can decide to, let's see the difference between this space and the greater than sign. So it's still the same thing. So the same way you can select the child using space, the parent element and the child element, or you can separate it with using this greater than, whichever way. Just make sure it work for you. Anyone that work for you, it's fine. So the next one now is the uh, adjacent sibling selector. That's why that means the sibling that they are side by side, they are beside each other. So let's say I have a div. This is a div now, for example. Now let's say I have another paragraph in here. Let's call it paragraph one, and let's create another one, paragraph two. So, and I want to select only the paragraph that is next to this div, and not just all the paragraph, just the paragraph that is next to this particular div. And then how will I do that? I will use the selector called adjacent sibling selector. That means the sibling, or the element that are on the same level and they are beside each other. So that's what we do. So let's say I want to select the div, and to select the adjacent sibling, I need to use the plus sign. So let me just say the color is, let's say the color this time around is any color with D, purple. Yeah, let's use purple. And if I save, yeah, you can see now that it only pick the first paragraph, does not pick the second paragraph, because I only want to select the sibling that is immediately next to this div. Okay, let's see something in action now. Let's say in between the div and paragraph, I create another span here, and I make this to be a random text of 2. If I save, you can see that the style is not applied. It will only apply if it is immediately next to that parent, to that particular element. So they must be beside each other without anything separating them. So if I remove this now, the color purple will now apply now. So if you want to style elements that are beside each other, then you use the adjacent sibling selector with the plus sign. Now we also have another one, which is the general sibling selector. General sibling selector, that means you want to select all the, instead of you to select the first one, you want to select all the paragraphs that they are on the same, all the elements. Let me know this paragraph now, because it does not only apply to paragraph. If you want to select all the elements that are on the same level with that parent element, then you select all, instead of you to select the first one that is immediately next. So you use the general sibling selector, and the symbol for general sibling selector is div, and you use this sign that is beside your 1 or below your escape key on your keyboard. So shift, it's or at the top of backtick, we call it backtick, but just select shift and that sign beside your 1 key on your keyboard. So this is used to select, so this symbol is used to select the general sibling, or instead of you to select the first one, you select all. You can see that this purple only apply to the first one. But if I want to select, oh, let's say and I give it a color of, oh yeah, yellow this time around, yellow. If I save now, you can see that the style apply, it's even override the first one. It's applied to all the siblings instead of the first one that applied to only the first. So this one is the general sibling, that's they're on the same level, all the elements are on the same level, and this one is the first one that is immediately next to it. Now the next selector, and it's applied to classes, to ID, depends on you. Now we have the attribute selector. You can also select an element using its attributes, just like this is a class attribute. And don't forget, in our HTML session we look at input element that has different attributes. So let's see that, in action now. Let's just create a form. As you know that your input element should be wraparound form. So let's not compromise that standard. A type of text, let's limit it to this now, and let's now duplicate it and maybe make this a type of email. If I save, you should see something on the screen. Input elements, they are inline elements, so that's why you are seeing them. But let me make them to be on a separate line. So this is just HTML. So if you are not familiar with what I'm doing, just go through the HTML series, and I move this here. Okay, I move this here, and let's say I want to, okay, if I save now, they should be on a separate line. Okay, let me just break it once so that I have space. Yeah, let me also break this place to once so that I have space. Yeah, so that I can see what we are doing. Now this is relating what you have on the text. We are not labeling it because we just want to style. So let's not waste time labeling. Now, the first one is type of text. The second one is type of email. Let's say I want to select the first one, but notice I did not put any property of class, I did not put any property of ID, and I don't want to select with the input. I want to select the property. Now, to select the property, let's see how to do that. So, property selector, you can select any property. It can be anything, but in this case I want to select the property of type of text input. So to select with the property, you just need to choose a square bracket and you just define the property name, in this case type, and the property value to be text. That means that any element that has a property of type with the value of text, then apply this type to it. Let me make the height to be maybe 30. If 30 will be too much, let's make it 20. You can see now that, okay, I think the difference is not very clear. Let me make it 30. Now see, the one that has a type of text, the height has increased, while the one that does not have a type of text, the height remains unchanged. Why? Because I selected the element with the property. So let's say you have a property of name. In name is maybe first name, for example, and you want to select with the property of first name. All you just need to do is just come here and have a square bracket, then you say name is equals to first name. So it's going to select the element that has name as first name. So let me remove the height from here. Okay, let me put width here this time around. Let me put the width to be 56 pixels, if that will be. So yeah, consider the size reduced. Why? Because I selected it with the property of name. So it can be any property, just specify the name of the property together with the value. Now moving forward, the next selector that we have is the pseudo classes selector. Now there are some properties that, for example, now when you click on this, when you move your mouse on top of this button, this is called over. When you click on this, input element. This is called active. So all these property, you can use them to style your HTML element, and those properties are called pseudo classes. Let's take for example, let me use the button for example, and okay, let me copy this following the same convention, move this. Now I come here, pseudo classes, and maybe I say okay the button, and because I'm using the pseudo classes, I'll do full column. Maybe I want when the user over is when you move your mouse on it. So let me say I want to change the color of the text to red when the user over the button. If I save now, if I move my mouse, that's a property pseudo class. Okay, if I move my mouse, you can see that when my mouse is on top of this button, the color change to red because I use the pseudo class of over. Now we also have other pseudo classes like maybe first child, last child, nth child. And now let's just choose this. Let me comment this out and let's see. Let's use the div that we have created. Okay, no, let me not comment this. Let me comment out the span. Now we have the div maybe the first child. If I want to select the first child of the div and I want to make the color to be maybe something brown, for example, brown. If I save, I want to remove. Okay, yeah, this is the span, but let me make it something more visible. Okay, I think I've commented it out. Let me go and comment it. Yeah, it's still active, so it's still active, but let me just make it something unique. Yellow, for example. Okay, let me refresh. I think refresh. So let me see span. Yeah, the first and last child pseudo class is just okay. Maybe for example, I want to select div a span that is the first child of its parents, a div that is the first child of its parents. Then you use the first class. Let's say okay, for example, if you look at these elements now, this div, this span, the parents is div, and the first child of this particular this span is the first child of its parents. So if I want to style it, I'll just say okay, span that is the first child of its parents, then give it a background color of maybe red. If I save it, I can see that if the span has the first child of its parents, give it the background color of red. And let's say I want to style the span that is the last child of its parents, then I'll use the background color of maybe blue, and I save. You can see that the one that is the last child of the parents, it give you. So first child, you can also have nth child. So let's say I want to style the paragraph that is the nth child, and I'm going to be passing the, okay, let me say the first or the second child. I'm going to say background color, let me use target blue this time around. Yeah, no paragraph that is the first, that is the second child of its parents. Now let's properly create it so that we see it in action. So let me just wrap this paragraph in a div, and I just move it and save it, and you can see now that the one that is the second child, let's give it a background color because this is the parent and this is the child. So this is the first child, second child. So that is that. We move on in the next